Whenever I watch Real Madrid, I think there's just like no way this team gets anything done except through sheer individual brilliance. Like over the even when they were balling, right? Even when they won the UCL, like they got a lot of points in La Liga. They obviously won the Champions League undefeated. But when I watched that team, there were so many times where other teams could have beaten them, right? City could have beaten them. I remember Leipzig could have beaten them. Obviously, Dortmund in that final could have beaten them. Bayern. Like there were so many times where it felt like that team should have lost and they ended up coming out on top. And then Mbappe joins, and then obviously you see there's just no collective, any chemistry whatsoever. No collective success, basically, no trophies, etc. And then now, under Mourinho, their second game, first game at the Bernabeu, and they win 4-1. But you look at this game in totality, I don't think, there were 3 goals between Sociedad and Real Madrid. I think it's just the individual brilliance. Like, if they can get it at the right times, they're going to be good, man. Now, I do think we're in an era where football has kind of figured out the superstars, right? I mean, the last few, Galactico style teams have failed utterly. Obviously, Real Madrid. You can look at PSG, right? But I do think right now, if Madrid can sort of figure out a formula to somehow make this repeatable, and I think it probably ends up with just feeding Mbappe as many times as possible. Which, to be fair, PSG have done it, right? Monaco did it. Well, not the same to not the same extent, but you know, you find a formula enough where it's repeatable, sustainable, successful, they might have a chance of winning La Liga. I don't know if I'll put them at, the UCL contender level, and I'll make a separate video on that. Make sure you guys look out for that. But I do think Real Madrid right now, from what I'm seeing, yes, there's still those elements of the same old Madrid where, you see Mbappe and Vinny on the left, and you're like, man, can you guys get out of each other's way? And, these guys aren't running and pressing and whatnot. But if they just connect enough times, I think they'll beat most teams, right? Now, when it comes to the big clashes, when it comes to the Barca and the El Clasicos and going up against, the Arsenals and the PSGs and the Bayerns, that is a different story. They're still going to have to go another level to get to that echelon. But I do think, as of right now, this team is better than last year's, purely because I think this individual brilliance is going to be stronger. And then I also do have to give some shout out to the squad building and the further collective, because yes, I still think this team is going to rely on individual brilliance. However, bringing in like better cogs in the machine is going to improve things. And I think you saw it today. Bernardo Silva looks a lot more assured in midfield. Federico Valverde starting to get his bearings back in midfield. Great assist to Mbappe today. Arda Güler, same thing, and then now you have Cucurella, Konate is more athletic in the back. I'm not saying Konate is necessarily as smart as a defender, or as composed rather, but I do think that athleticism is going to help them smoke fires out, and and really kind of keep a lid on some of these absolute gaping holes that they used to have in the back. So hopefully, for Madrid's sake, they can kind of keep on this wave. I still think when you watch this team, like, they don't blow you away. I don't feel blown away when I watch Madrid as a team. I do get blown away by these small moments of, individual brilliance showing up, like that one goal for Mbappe to complete his hat trick between Jude and Mbappe. Great two touch. You know what I'm saying? That first Mbappe goal from Valverde to Mbappe, and great touch by Mbappe. He just completely does the defender up. But overall, it's weird with this Madrid team, because as good as they are, I still think, or rather, as good as these players are, especially Mbappe, Vinny, Jude, and then when they're combining like today, it's incredible. I still think the elite teams are going to deal with them quite handily, right? I still think the PSGs, the Barcelonas, the even the Arsenals are going to deal with this team quite easily. So I don't know how they get to that next level. You're talking about something that you just haven't seen from Madrid yet. So I don't even know if they can do it. And I don't have the utmost confidence that they will. But I do think that if they can get this going, just focus on this part of individual brilliance and combining and getting the best out of your stars. And then secondly, just do enough in the back to not concede more than a goal a game. They might have a formula. They might have a formula. A lot remains to be seen as early as hell in the season, but it is an encouraging win, because look, 4-1 is still 4-1, right? And I don't think Madrid were 3 better goals than Sociedad, but I do think Madrid found some really really encouraging signs today that honestly, you don't really get at first when you watch this team. I also got to shout out to more about their collective because I do think Madrid getting deeper this year is going to help them massively. Look at the subs today, right? Brahim Diaz, Camavinga, Diomande, of course. Cucurella came on as a sub, but I'd imagine, he'd take the place of Carreras as the season goes on. But to be able to bring those players on compared to last season, where you're bringing, Thiago Pitarch and Gonzalo Garcia, who are not bad players by any means, but it's not the same level of quality off the bench. To be able to have that is going to be massive for them. And I'm really interested to see how they utilize this depth. You know, I didn't see Mbappe come off today, and we all know Mbappe famously never likes to come off, never likes to get subbed. But I would like to see, if you're Madrid, if you're a Madridista, that you start using these players. Diomande, should be starting versus the likes of like an Elche or Leganes. Or, I don't think Leganes is in La Liga this year, but those lower teams, right? So we'll see what happens there. But I do think that depth is going to be a huge factor as far as Madrid having a better season than last. And yeah, man, I think this was an encouraging win. It's not all sunshines and rainbows. I still think there's a lot of work to be done. Jude is carrying a lot of that ground covering still. He's doing a lot of work for the front line, I think, especially in the final third, which is fine because it's Jude Bellingham. It's what he does. But for me, I would like to see a little bit more involvement there, a little smarter positioning. When they come up against a team, with strong center backs, like I think of that one game versus Liverpool last year, right? Or actually both the last 2 years, right? When they went to Anfield and they just were completely bodied and non-existent in the Liverpool final third because Van Dijk and Konate just completely shut it down. They had no physicality whatsoever, right? And you're not going to get Mbappe on the end of headers. You got to accept that. So I want to see, how do they deal with that, right? Maybe you bring in Carlos Espie in for that game to occupy the center backs, and you start doing some reconfigurations. But I would love to see Madrid, become a little more versatile. I think that's another thing they have to do if they really want to get to the top of European football, which is weird to say, right? You're Madrid getting to the top of European football, but there is still comfortably, I think, 4 to 5 teams better than Real Madrid, and as better as as much as they look better, they still have to get to that next level. So this is an encouraging sign, but you can still see the gaps, I think, from today. And there was still quite a few, near goals from Sociedad. I mean, there was one volley they had. Oyarzabal had a chance. So, there were still a few chances. But look, if they can contain that, rely on their individual brilliance and get their individual brilliance to be consistent, something's there. Something is there. But I also want to touch on another thing. And Mbappe had a great game today. Another hat trick. He's Mbappe. He's going to score goals. I wonder if, what does this mean for the Ballon d'Or? Because when I look at the Ballon d'Or, it's in October. I don't know if the voting's over yet or not, but it's really Harry Kane's to win, right? Overall, it's Harry Kane's to win. He had the best, individual season, and he actually won trophies compared to Mbappe. But PR is a big thing, and I look at Real Madrid PR versus Bayern PR, Real Madrid PR versus any other PR that's not Barcelona. It's basically a wash, right? So I wonder if Mbappe is actually strengthening his case for the Ballon d'Or with today's performance. I don't know. I don't think you should be giving Ballon d'Ors out for trophyless seasons unless it's like a record-breaking season. And Ronaldo had a similar case in 2013 where a lot of people still think Ribéry should have won, although Ribéry did not necessarily have the level of individual performance as Ronaldo. But I look at the Ballon d'Or this year and I wonder, for Mbappe's level of individual performance, he had a better World Cup than Harry Kane too. And you look at today, I don't know. I think there's a sliver. There's a sliver Mbappe might actually sneak in and grab this Ballon d'Or while having his worst club season achievements wise ever, right? I mean, it would be quite funny. It would be quite funny. And it's weird because with the Ballon d'Or, you know, as much as people like to say, "Oh, it's losing credibility," sometimes a name just gives it credibility, right? If you say, 20 years from now, people will be like, "Oh yeah, Mbappe deserved that Ballon d'Or because he's Mbappe," right? The same way they say Messi deserves certain Ballon d'Ors because he's Messi, right? Or the same about Ronaldo, right? And we all know they have highly contested, highly controversial Ballon d'Or wins. But I just wonder, hey, do you give it to Mbappe just because he's Mbappe? I don't know. It's one of those things in sports where you see it all the time with, individual awards, right? MVP awards. People would say LeBron James should actually win the MVP because he's the most valuable player in the league for however many years. Like it should always be LeBron. And you also get the voter fatigue, and there's just so many aspects. But my main point here is maybe Mbappe might end up winning this Ballon d'Or. I don't know. He's getting the goals, man, and that counts for something. If not, it's not everything, but it counts for something. With that being said, I'm very interested to see what Madrid do rather in the Champions League. That draw is coming up tomorrow. We're gonna do a little preview video, so make sure you stay on the lookout for that. But yeah, man, big win from Real Madrid. Jose Mourinho can be happy, I think. 4-1. You get off to a good start. 2 wins out of 2. Great home debut. Fans got to be excited. All your stars are clicking. Hey, you know what? Right now, as of today, right now, you could say life is good in Madrid. How do you say that in Spanish? La vida está bien. La vida está bien in Madrid. But yeah, man. Thank you guys for watching. It's been your boy, Ollie Footy. Until next time, we out.